day you had to stop dancing, how would you feel?
The sweetness and the sorrow. Wish me luck the same to you. But I can't regret what I did for love, what I did for love. Look, my eyes are dry. The gift was ours to borrow. It's as if we always knew. And I won't forget what I did for love, what I did for love. Gone, love is never gone as we travel on. Love's what we'll remember. Kiss today goodbye and point me toward tomorrow. We did what we had to do. Won't forget, can't regret what I did for love. What I did for love. What I did for
Okay, this one's for Gabby. This has been a long time in coming. Ralph Bleier, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory forever be a blessing, died on April 5th, 2020. We had a private family Shiva on April 7th, and we held a Zoom Shiva for the community on April 12th. This was heartbreaking for the family. Not to be able to mourn Ralph's death in person with the community he loved so dearly and served with such dedication. We planned this celebration of life before we knew exactly how we were going to be able to gather. And thank God, here we are. Finally. It's somehow fitting and right that the first time this community gathers in this sanctuary since Purim of last year, we gather to honor Ralph Bleier. In life, Ralph brought us together, and so he does today. We gather this afternoon in our continuous process of offering comfort and support to the Bleier and Cohn families. Today, we celebrate an amazing life well lived. We gather with Ralph's beloved wife and dearest friend, Kathy. His son, Kenneth, Ken's wife, Mariah, their children, Ethan and Avery, his daughter, Kelly, her husband, Aryeh. Their children, Kyla, Noah, and Eli. His son, Jason, and his wife, Clara. His brother, Rick, and his wife, Lena. His nephew, Bill, his wife, Lauren, and little Cora. We are about to witness something that is remarkable and highly unusual. For me, having done this work for 30 years, it is unprecedented. This celebration of life was carefully planned and orchestrated by Ralph Bleier. Now, he didn't know that we'd be doing this more than a year after his death. How could he? Now, I have to tell you, in the past, I have met with people while they were alive who made some specific requests about what they wanted for their funerals, their memorials, their celebrations of life. Ralph Bleier planned this whole ceremony. Here it is. Everything. I remember when he was putting it together, and I would sit with him and go, wow. You know, the most amazing thing is it wasn't just about today. It was how he approached his death. With thoughtfulness, integrity, and great heart. Ralph's unique heart. Ralph loved music, and you will hear his favorite music throughout this service this afternoon. All as music videos. He loved these videos. Ralph had some special poems, some prayers, some of his own deep reflections that he wanted to be heard in this gathering. His children, their spouses, and his grandchildren will be reading these pieces for us, along with some of their own words, honoring Pop-Pop, their dad, their grandfather. This is nothing short of amazing. It is fully Ralph Bleier. I do want to acknowledge the implementation of his plan by his beloved Kathy and his children and his grandchildren. This, my friends, is Ralph's masterpiece. And we all get to be here to soak it in, to deeply appreciate the dear friend he was to so many of us here. The community leader who brought all of his considerable skills to the effort of building this home that he loved so much. Those of you who were there remember his participation in the groundbreaking and in the dedication of this building, this sanctuary. He served his second non-consecutive term as president in the post-2008 period, when it was especially difficult to find people to lead. It was a tough time. He was the guy. He stood up and said, "I'll do this heavy lifting. Community needs me." I'm going to pause here. I'll have more to say about my dear friend a little later, but he wouldn't want me to go on right now. I already hear him say, "Get on with it." So now we're going to hear the first piece of Ralph's favorite music. Enjoy.
Minutes, 525,000 moments, oh dear. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter and strife. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in the life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of or in times that he cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died. It's time now to sing out, though the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember a year in the life of friends. Remember love, love.
His daughter-in-law, Ralph's daughter-in-law, Mariah. Ralph never liked those terms, daughter-in-law. She was always, from the moment she came into Ken's life and they started building a life together, she was a daughter. I'd like to invite Mariah to come up to share two pieces Ralph wrote during the 17-month period between his diagnosis with glioblastoma and his death. An extraordinary period in his life in which he reflected deeply about life and death, about as deeply as any human being can. Mariah?
My father-in-law, Ralph Bleier, also known to me as Pops. He had a great sense of humor. He always had a twinkle in his eye as he told a joke or recited a line from a movie, which he did often. He liked to say, in his New York accent, "Never lose your sense of humor." He lived a life where he laughed freely and frequently. Actually, Pops had this unique gift of being able to laugh the hardest at his own jokes. He would sometimes make himself laugh so hard, he would bring himself to tears, and then in turn make all of us laugh. He was quite entertaining. To consistently seek out the funny and joyful things in life is the right way to approach living. He gave us the gift of not just telling us how to live and how to be a good person, but he showed us how to live a good life and how to be a good person. He lived a beautiful life filled with love and joy and laughter and many good friends, and he shared just a lot of love with us family. Pops was also incredibly organized, as Rabbi Dan indicated. He did plan this whole day and had a big binder for today. And he wanted to plan today's agenda for everybody here so that it would go just according to plan. So a few months before he died, he wrote out some thoughts which he wanted read aloud today. So I'm honored to share his words with you, Why I Hate Funerals by Ralph Bleier. Why I hate funerals. A few family members and maybe a friend share stories. Then a member of the clergy does the eulogy. Most often, the member of the clergy did not know the person who died well, if at all. So the eulogy comes from stories the family has shared with him or her. There are so many prayers about the glory of God. How about the glory of this person? After all, hearing the stories, they must have been so wonderful, you say to yourself, I wish I had known them better. After the service, people move on to the gravesite. A few prayers are said, and the casket is lowered into the ground by the grim reapers, as he liked to say. Most often, everyone takes a shovel full of dirt and pours it on the casket. Now, this is a sound I don't like. Jewish law requires the casket to be fully buried, so this can go on for a long time. Everyone greets the family to extend their thoughts and prayers and to say, "Wasn't that a beautiful service? And now it is over. The life is finished. There is no more except maybe a party afterward where the kids play as if nothing happened. And then life goes on as it always has, and tomorrow we go back to work." How about, instead of thoughts and prayers, we say, "My heart breaks for you, and how empty and lonely you must feel. I pray there is a heaven where you will be together again in time, in perfect peace and love. In the meantime, may your life be filled with the memory of love, caring, and stories that will make you smile and laugh when you think of your loved one. They would not like you to be sad, at least not for too long." My father-in-law knew how hard, how painful it is to lose a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, a friend, but he wanted today to be a celebration, and his was truly, truly a life worth celebrating. I feel lucky to have known Ralph Bleier. I feel lucky to have been welcomed with such open arms into his family. I feel lucky that he treated me like a real daughter. I feel lucky that my kids had an amazing grandpa, a really awesome grandpa. And this world is truly a better place because Ralph Bleier was in it. So, Pops, we'll see you on the other side. Until then, we will continue to find the joy and laughter in each day, just like you showed us how to. Thank you.
We've only just begun to live. White lace and promises, a kiss for luck and we're on our way.
We've only begun.
Before the rising sun we fly. So many roads to choose. We start out walking and learn to run.
And yet we've just begun.
Sharing horizons that are new to us, watching the signs along the way, talking it over, just the two of us, working together day to day, together. And when the evening comes, we smile. So much of life ahead. We'll find a place where there's room to grow.
And yes, we've just begun.
Sharing horizons that are new to us, watching the signs along the way, talking it over, just the two of us, working together day to day, together, together.
smile. So much of life ahead. We'll find a place where there's room to grow.
And yes, we've just begun.
His son Kenneth, his firstborn, will share another deep reflection piece about Ralph's philosophy and offer some of his own words about his father.
Remembering the life journey of Ralph Bleier. In 2011, after my dad finished watching a TV series called Lost, he felt inspired to write Ralph's philosophy of life, afterlife, and the places in the middle. It's a very spiritual and deeply thoughtful essay in which he discusses the important things in life, mainly the people he loved, such as his grandparents, and he grappled with losing them when their time came. If you'd like a copy of it, just send me an email and I'll forward it over to you. It's really, really long. But today I will share a few quotes with you. Now fast forward about 10 years later, and a diagnosis with glioblastoma, to an evening in the fall of 2020, when he invited me over to listen to him read that essay out loud and have a philosophical discussion about it. We sat together that evening discussing life and death and the meaning of life and death. Him and his Optune on his head to try and slow the glioblastoma, him grappling with his own imminent death while still being the parent to me, his middle-aged son, helping to usher me into the space of saying goodbye to a parent. Me taking him and his words in, trying to savor every moment of our time together. This discussion we had together, I recorded on my phone, and after he died, I listened to the recording, and hearing his voice again was very, very comforting. I can play it for you too one day too, but I won't do it now. In his essay, he wrote, "Someday I will die. I hope it'll be a comfortable death. I like to be able to say goodbye to those I love and tell them how much they've meant to me, but I don't get to choose my time or how it will come to be." And he said, well, now I think I've got kind of an idea now. "I'll have meaning in my life. It'll come from good things I have done, the people I have touched, those I've helped along the way, and the love I've been fortunate enough to experience." My dad wrote, two months before my mother died of lung cancer, she was sitting in her kitchen, and her father, who died in 1957, walked into the room. And her brother, who died, a World War II war hero, he walked into the room too. And he said, "Sis, it'll be okay. We're ready for you." Now, my grandmother was a very, very serious woman. And she didn't believe in this kind of nonsense, but it happened. It comforted her. So, does someone who we love, who has passed through to the other side, come back to help us accept our death? and prepare us for that transition. He began thinking about this a lot. And when his father died, he came to believe that the souls of the people who have passed before us, they'll come back to escort us to be united with God. He wrote, "I have come to this conclusion. It's not based on fact, but to some extent, it's based on experience. Bottom line, it's just a belief I take in faith. There's no immutable proof, but it gives me comfort and hope, so I'm sticking with it." In the end, my dad died at peace and surrounded by loved ones. When he left his physical body and entered the spiritual realm, he was surrounded by love. I couldn't be prouder of the graceful and brave way in which he embraced life, and then also his complete life journey. I'm lucky to have such an amazing, emotionally intelligent, encouraging, reassuring, good-humored, and caring dad. His memory will always be a powerful blessing to me. His love and laughter will live on inside me forever. My dad wrote, "For me, it's a need to be at peace. It's being able to take all the ups and downs that we deal with in our lives and be glad for the journey. At the same time, it's the ability to let the past go and be in the moment and enjoy it. And birth is a beginning, and life's a destination, and death's a destination, and life is a journey and sacred pilgrimage to the everlasting." So his philosophy really came down to two things. Be at peace for what comes next, and he addresses how much we're going to miss the people that we love, and it's a way to approach that. When we lose someone we love, there's a hole in your heart that heals over time. It was a gift for our family to have the opportunity to say goodbye to him and have deep conversations about spirituality, his philosophy of life, and places in the middle. He taught us that every day, every second of every day is a gift. Every breath that we take is a gift. When we're alive in this light, it's a blessing. Every breath. Thank you.
It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walk a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile
Ralph and Kathy had 3 children together, and this next person was without a doubt Ralph's favorite daughter. Everyone here knows Kelly Cohn, the head of the Tree of Life preschool, and like her father and mother before her, together with her husband Aryeh, a leader of our Beth Chaim community.
When the wind beneath your wings is gone, how do you fly? I haven't been able to figure that out for the last 14 months. Ralph Kleinert Bleier, my dad. There's so much that I want to share with all of you today, so you can understand what an incredible man my father was. I want to tell you everything. I could talk for hours telling you all the stories. But today I will simply share with you a love story about a daughter and her dad. My dad was the wind beneath my wings. I sang that song in a show in 7th grade, and I dedicated it to my dad. It meant so much to him. It really moved him. And when he heard that song, he understood his importance, his role, his success. But it wasn't always that way. When I was born, and my dad had no idea what to do with me. A little girl. My dad was the youngest of 3 boys. He had no sisters to show him the way. It didn't come naturally to him. I had to teach him. When me and my brothers were small, my dad spent a lot of time with the boys. He was their soccer coach. He had them out mowing the grass together and kicking the ball. He left most of the Kelly parenting to my mom. The only thing I had going for me was that I was his favorite daughter, his only daughter. But I liked knowing that. I was bound and determined to find my way in, to bond, to be close. Looking back, I realized that at this point in my life, my dad was already the wind beneath my wings, the one who drove me to work hard, to not give up, the one who lifted me. The wind beneath my wings began to blow without him even knowing it. My dad finally began to see on a sunny day in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. A friend had given me and my dad tickets to see a game. At this time, I didn't even really like sports, but I couldn't wait to spend the day alone with my dad. Just him and me. Dad and I sat behind Don Mattingly at first base. He taught me to score the game. We cheered, we laughed, we sang. We had so much fun together. And he looked at me differently, adoringly. That was our first date. The first of many dates, the beginning of an effort to know and to love the one who he gave flight. Our dates continued. I would try and sneak little dates in any chance I could. I'd climb into my parents' bed and snuggle up next to my dad, who was not a snuggler. We would watch Dallas and Dynasty, and movie after movie. I would sneak bites of his popcorn. My dad didn't share his popcorn. I auditioned for my first musical, and my dad watched me from the audience, and that same look overcame his eyes. Adoration, sameness, love. There were years when we didn't have as many dates. I miss them. When I came home from college and I started graduate school, our dates resumed. And then he walked me down the aisle, and we danced. That was a great date. When I had each of my babies, my dad would show up at the hospital, and he would sit next to my bed, and he would stay, and he would just sit. He didn't need to be doing anything. He would just sit and be with me. My life got crazy with 3 little kids and starting my own business and being pulled in a million directions, and our dates happened less frequently. As my kids learned to get dressed on their own and buckle their own seatbelt, the haze of motherhood that surrounded me lifted. I called my dad. Let's go on a date. We went to see shows and concerts, watched the Yankee games and movies, picked out gifts for my mom, went skiing and had lots and lots of sushi, and we talked. Although he didn't know much about little girls until I was born, he knew a lot about powerful women. He was raised by one, he married one, and he believed that I could be one. He inspired me. My dad validated my journey. He pushed me to see myself as he saw me. He believed in my strength, power, and capability, and he adored me. He helped me to see that I could be an incredible mom and wife. I could run a business, be involved in our synagogue, be a good friend. My dad's love gave me the wind beneath my wings that helped me to fly high, so high I could almost touch the sky. My favorite date came from the most challenging time in our lives. Dad knew that there would not be many more dates. I had just had my second hip surgery. I lay bedbound in my bedroom, an ice machine around my hip, and I knew who would come and sit next to me. I had Aryeh put a chair right next to my bed. My dad walked in the room, and he looked at me. And instead of walking to the chair, he walked right around the bed to the other side of Aryeh's side, and he got in. What are we going to watch? He had a stack and, of course, a list of all our favorite movies, movies he and I could recite all the lines to, that we loved to watch over and over. And the list was long, but we were determined to get through it, to watch every movie on the list before our last date. At this point, my dad couldn't be alone because he was having so many seizures caused by the tumor in his brain. And I needed someone to get me water and snacks. And so he stayed every day, all day. Mom would drop him off, and we would have some time for her to get some work done, and we would watch. Who would have thought that the weeks after having a total hip replacement would be one of the most precious times in my entire life? I healed. My dad did not. But our dates continued. I took Fridays off of work, knowing that these would be our last dates, and we made time. We had sushi. We picked out one last piece of jewelry for my mom, and we had more sushi. And then we had our last date. My dad slept in the bed in the living room, my brothers, my mom, and I on the couches surrounding him. I prayed over him as he slept. He wasn't able to talk or communicate very well anymore, but he opened his eyes and he looked at me. "You are my favorite dad," I said, expecting nothing in return. "You're my favorite daughter," he said. Our last words, our last date. The wind beneath me is gone, and I cannot seem to fly. As the days go by, I know that I will have the strength to be the daughter, the woman that he believes me to be, to fly again. But for now, I will find comfort and gratitude in knowing that Ralph Bleier was my dad. He will always be my dad. And one of the most incredible things that he did in his life was loving me. Our relationship wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. Our love was always present. But the deep bond, it took patience, effort, persistence, and a lot of great dates. Dad, I miss you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank God for you, the wind beneath my wings.
You are the sunshine of my life. That's why I'll always be around.
You are the apple of my eye. Forever you'll stay in my heart.
I feel like this is the beginning. Though I've loved you for a million years. And if I thought our love was ending, I'd find myself drowning in my own tears. Whoa, you are the sunshine of my life. Yeah, that's why I'll always stay around. Yeah. You are the apple of my eye. Forever you stay in my heart. You must have known that I was lonely, because you came to my rescue. And I know that this must be heaven. How could so much love be inside of you? Oh, you are the sunshine of my life. Yeah, that's why I'll always stay around. You are the apple of my eye. Forever you stay in my
Ralph's youngest son, Jason, will offer some of his words about his dad and share another piece Ralph authored during the last breathtaking stage of his life. Jason.
Good afternoon, everyone. How do I stand here this afternoon and tribute my father in a few short minutes? How can my words encompass such an incredible and selfless man? And how and why was I so fortunate and so lucky? I will forever be filled with gratitude and love. But the real question is, how did he pull this off so naturally? I've pondered this for quite some time, and especially since he was diagnosed. And what I realized was that it was deeply embedded in him through what he held so sacred. You see, it was the sacred things in his life that ultimately created some of his greatest legacies. First of all, please, everyone take a moment and look around. Look at this beautiful building on the hill. This sacred space, this spiritual home, didn't exist until a champion came along. And through his own resilience and devotion to his community, and with his parents' example, was able to dig deep through his resourcefulness, tenacity, and help raise the necessary funds with the capital campaign to get across the finish line and break ground and give Beth Heim the home that so much deserved. And then there's our family huppah, or you may call it a hopa, that's been in our family since 1790. Every Bleier, including all of us, has been married under this huppah since 1790. How special and sacred is that? And then there's the Czech Memorial Trust. He helped preserve this congregation's sacred Torahs in the ark behind me. They were saved from the Nazis in World War II. He made sure they would stay with Beth Heim in perpetuity. And in my father's own words, Rabbi Dan, you officiate every important life cycle event in our family, and I consider him a family member and dear friend. And in my father's own words, helping my mother through a one-year battle with cancer and the final moments we had together was the most spiritual moment of my life. And in my father's own words, my parents, who really inspired me and gave me the foundation to be the man I became, and I was so fortunate to have them in my life, I am planning on our souls being reunited in the presence of God. And then there's my mother. And in my father's own words, Kathy Kelly Bleier, my true north for more than 47 years. Our marriage has been the most sacred relationship. She shares her love so openly and so deeply for so many people. Excuse me. She's been through every up and down. Every day when I wake, I am greeted with a cheery smile and the words, "Hello," followed by a warm kiss. How did I get so lucky to have this angel in my life? Moreover, you see, my father's credo was always about family first, without question or exception. He was always the ultimate provider, with an exceptional work ethic that brought promotion after promotion. We may have moved from coast to coast and even the Midwest, but my father provided a lifestyle that most children never have the privilege to experience. From family vacations to our lake house in Vermont and ski trips to Tahoe, and 8 straight summers at sleepaway camp in New Hampshire, to putting all three of us through college with 0 student debt. He had a passion and patience to coach our soccer teams year after year, not to mention how much he loved singing while going to the waterslide parks with us, and of course instilling us the deep, passionate love for the New York Yankees. And even through the rough teenage years, tough moves, car accidents, and juvenile delinquent episodes, it wasn't me. He provided the ultimate example of family values and what it means to be a solid husband. He reinforced this philosophy by not sweating the small stuff and for never to be too quick to judge. And at the end of the day, all that matters is family and your devotion to your friends. The measure of my father's character is based on his integrity, devotion, sensitivity, commitment to his community, faith, friends, colleagues, and of course his beloved family. His priorities were always unparalleled and never questioned or doubted. The fact was, he was the true definition of a mensch. He showed us the path, an example for me, for Ken, for Kelly, to show and to live by. I find comfort in knowing that we had the relationship that we did. He taught me so much about what was truly sacred and the value of family, marriage, and ultimately yourself. Part of me is now gone forever, but I will honor him now. And for my brother, and for my sister, and for my beautiful mother. I will see him again one day, but in the meantime, I will do my best to follow his example and to live life and never forget that he was the greatest and most genuine man I have ever known. What a blessing and a privilege to have had Ralph Kleiner Bleier as my father. Thank you, Dad. I love you so much, and I promise you I will take care of Mom. I am forever grateful for everything, and just like you told your father, when he left us, you will always be the wind beneath our wings. I love you, Papa. May your memory be a blessing. Thank you all so much for coming.
Without you, the ground thaws, the rain falls, the grass grows. Without you, the seeds root, the flowers bloom, the children play, the stars gleam, the birds dream, the eagles fly. Without you, the earth turns, the sun burns, but I die without you.
I not only had the privilege of marrying all of Ralph and Kathy's children, but I also officiated at his brother Rick's wedding to his beloved Lena. Uncle Rick, as he is known in the Bleier family, has some loving words about his dear brother.
Kathy told me to try and stay under 15 minutes. I'll do that. If I can get it to start. Well, you'll kick me off if I go too long. Ralph Kleiner brother, Bleier, my brother, a.k.a. the Brat. Remember that when I was 10, he was 3. When I was 16, he was 9. And at age 9, there's some of the monkey see, monkey do in your life. We lived in Chappaqua, New York, which is in Westchester County, and in Westchester County, discharging firearms is not allowed. So I went out and I bought a pellet pistol, which was allowed. And I went out to an abandoned chicken coop and got somewhat proficient in it. And then my brother Stephen and I got angry with one another. So I took my pellet gun and I put a .22 caliber pellet in it and I pumped it twice and I shot him dead on in the middle. And of course, with only 2 pumps at 10 feet, the bullet about rolled off his knee. Ralph got mad at him. I guess Ralph was madder than I was. And he sat there and he took my pellet gun and he put a .22 caliber pellet in it and he pumped and he pumped and he pumped and he pumped. And he shot Stephen in the middle, but his aim wasn't good, and hit Stephen in the hand. He didn't break any bones, but he did draw blood. As I said, monkey see, monkey do. You saw a picture in the first batch of a house with a porch around it. The house is the house in which we grew up. Part of it is pre-revolutionary, and that porch was added in the early 1900s because my great-grandmother was ill and was in a wheelchair, and they could roll her out on there and roll her around. Ralph and Stephen were out there where they were not supposed to be and got into an altercation. And Stephen pushed his other brother very hard against the very rotten railing. And Ralph ended up in Mother's prize bush. Ralph was fine, the bush was not. My mother was displeased. Ralph decided at that time if you wanted to get into a good college, you had to take 3 years of one language or 2 years of 2. So he decided he was going to take 3 years of Spanish, to which my mother had some disparaging remarks, but he took it anyway. And then he went off to New England College in Henniker, and in his later year or 2, ended up with a girlfriend whose name I don't remember. It started with a C. I believe she was Hispanic, and he learned what a hot Latin lover was about. But they did not last after college. Ralph went to work in some form of social department, social work. And he was at that for a few months and not very happy with it. And I was working for, let's just say, an importer of home entertainment things for which I have such high regard that I will not tell you its name. And so he and I decided that it would make sense for us to go into business together. So we pooled our resources and we bought a franchise. I had learned some stuff about computers in college, and Ralph knew he wanted to be a salesman. And so we bought a franchise to do data processing, sales, and service for Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam, the 3 counties north of New York City. And I went through their class, and I got an office, and I had my first signed contract, and he was in the class, and they came in and said, "We're out of money. We're done. You're all on your own. Goodbye." So I'm hearing, "Woe is me, woe is me," and I said, "Opportunity, opportunity." So I started a business to take over what the franchisor was doing in New York City, and he kept the sales job. And I remember my poor brother sitting there with no sales training, which he was supposed to have gotten from the franchisor, trying to figure out how to sell stuff to companies that he'd never heard of in the city of New York. He didn't last at that very long. I ended up absorbing all of the franchisees over 7 years selling the business. But he went on to find somebody who could teach him how to sell and teach him how to manage and to become the success that he became. And so he took his family to the West Coast, which was not exactly what my mother would consider a joy. And I had already deserted and ended up in the Midwest. And they were coming east. I think you were with your father on that trip, and running around the top of the road near the ranch was this really cute little border collie. And so Ralph decided he wanted to take it home, which he did without asking his wife. So he gets back to Cincinnati, and he puts this wonderful electric fence around his property so the dog would be kept in and he wouldn't have something ugly. Except the dog maybe was smarter than Ralph was and learned very quickly that if he ran just as fast as he could, he would get past that and he wouldn't get much of a shock. And he got out and he could do whatever he wanted. But then it was time to come home and eat. And do you think that dog was going to cross that fence? Not on his life. He sat there and waited for Ralph to come home and turn the fence off. My brother was not the most intelligent of the 3 of us. But I don't think there is any question that he was the most successful. If you look at his business career, he did well. If you look at his community, he did well. If you look at this building, you will see that there is a monument to him, although it doesn't have to say a Bleier monument. Those people who know him know how important he was in having it accomplished. But his greatest accomplishment is the warm, loving, close family that he left. And I am very proud and pleased that they consider me a close part of it.
Ethan, Ralph's oldest grandchild, will read one of Ralph's favorite poems by Rabbi Dylan Thomas.
This is Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men, who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. And grave men, near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my grandfather, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. My grandpa dying, for me at least, was the ultimate fuck you from the universe. Thank you.
Ralph's son-in-law, Aryeh Cohn, who is currently on our Beth Chaim Board of Directors, is the person responsible for our building, part of Ralph's legacy. We'll share another piece Ralph wrote, and then offer the priestly blessing, a blessing that appears in the Torah portion we read this Shabbat.
To say I was blessed to have been welcomed and loved so deeply by the Bleier family would be a major understatement. I will say that so much of that open arms attitude for me originated with Ralph. Pops welcomed me into the family from day one and never held back. No topic was off limits or insincere. He always listened deeply and carefully and shared his knowledge, direction, support, unending laughter, and love. I never questioned his love for me as a son, just as I never questioned my love for him as a father. Pops was a great man, a man who showed courage and strength until his last day, a man who did not let his cancer beat him, but rather he rose to face it head on. Not questioning why, but savoring and enjoying the life he had lived while making sure those he left behind would be okay. A true mensch of a man. He lived life with a twinkle in his eye and a song in his heart. Many things rang deeply in his soul, but some things stronger than others. His love for Kathy was the top of that list. Pops never hesitated to let us know how blessed he was to have her by his side. He always said, a happy life is a happy wife. His love of his family was his other great joy. As he would say, he was a proud father of 6. 6 wonderful children, but nothing could tickle him like his grandchildren. Other joys in his life were his love of shows, music, a well-stacked tool bench, and the largest TV he could find. Through it all, these things rang truest: family, community, and Judaism. And within those 3 words, he found the most beautiful of words, Lador Vador. Pops was enchanted by the thought of Lador Vador. It's an oft-used phrase, some think the most common in all of Jewish custom. Put simply, Lador Vador refers to continuity, to the responsibility of passing on spiritual knowledge and cultural traditions from generation to generation, for the purpose of sustaining the customs, heritage, and collective memories of the Jewish people. Pops dedicated 10 years of his life helping to raise the money to build this temple as a house for the Torah and a home for Jewish parents, children, grandchildren, and friends, Lador Vador. The Czech Memorial Trust scrolls. Many Jews put their lives at risk to save the Jewish remnants of Czechoslovakia during World War II. These scrolls came to us after being found and restored, a miracle within itself. Pops believe that Jews of our time have a responsibility to keep the Torah as a tribute to those who came before us, and worked with the trust so that our congregation could keep the Czech Memorial Trust Torahs, Ledor Vador. Pops love that we opened a Jewish preschool that was run by his loving daughter here on these grounds. A preschool where children are taught to care about each other, to make the world a better place, and rooted in Judaism and love. Ledor Vador. His close friend, Rabbi Dan, married all of his children, blessed their newborn children, and helped to raise the grandchildren within these walls through Sunday school, Hebrew school, B'nai Mitzvah celebrations, and Midrashah, Ledor Vador. The Chai necklace that he wore as a young man, that was handed down from him to my son Noah. A necklace to life that Noah wears proudly and fearlessly every day, and that will help to shape him as a good Jewish man. Ledor Vador. If you really knew Pops, you knew his love of the show Lost. Nothing in his life had a more profound effect on him than the deep religious tones that ran deep in that show. The show itself was a topic of many, many discussions for years. Pops worked so hard to break down the show and to understand its hidden meanings. The question of mortality, of life after death, and the ultimate question of what comes next, and how does he fit into it? My father Ralph found the answer without ever knowing, and it all came to pass while giving him such incredible joy. His efforts, his toils, through his beliefs and love, he placed all of this at our feet. This is his immortality, from generation to generation. Ledor Vador. May his memory be a blessing to us all. Yivarechacha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yisim lecha shalom. And we sing together, may the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore. Thank you.
Ralph's grandchildren, Noah and Eli Cohn, will share one of Ralph's most favorite prayers by Rabbi Alvin Fine. Then they will offer the Shema, which was also so dear to his heart.
Life is a journey. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom.
From weakness to strength, or from strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and we pray to health again.
from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith.
From defeat to defeat to defeat, until not looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high point along the way, but in having made the journey step by step, a sacred pilgrimage.
Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey.
Now, where's Shema, I guess?
Yep.
Okay.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Amen. Thank you.
Good job.
Now we get to see a video from two of Ralph's oldest friends, Doug and Arnold.
When you hear the word encounter, what adjectives come to mind?
Strange encounter,
Amusing encounter,
close encounter,
romantic encounter.
brief encounter. But there's one that takes us back to the start of our friendship.
Marriage encounter. That takes us back to November 1974.
Barb and Kathy, two Shickses,
Married to two handsome Jewish mensches.
on a weekend retreat to
To
strengthen our marriages.
Maybe that was the secret to our long and happy ones.
That was 47 years ago. So many memories, so many happy memories of our friendship.
Staying with the Bleiers when our house wasn't ready, with 3 toddlers and a baby on the way.
Our millennial trip to California.
Carmel and Monterey.
Cruising to the Mexican Riviera.
And Ralph, always so funny and cerebral.
Witty, compassionate, and loving. The rabbi at our marriage encounter
Left us with these words. What we are is God's gift to us.
What we become is our gift to God. Ralph was a gift to so many, and we're blessed to be among them.
Hello, my name is Doug Krause, and I live in Chappaqua, New York, which was Ralph's hometown, where I first met him in the early 1960s. We quickly became best friends and remained so for the rest of his life. I want to tell you a little bit about what Ralph was like back in those days. You will perhaps not be surprised to learn that Ralph was very much the same wonderful, kind, caring, and thoughtful person 60 years ago as he was when he broke our hearts and left us much too soon last year. Ralph's and my friendship really blossomed in high school. We played together on the soccer team and pretty much did everything else together. And that actually made my parents very happy because Ralph had some great qualities that every parent of a teenager would eagerly seek in someone who was their child's best friend. Among those qualities were remarkably good judgment and a strong sense of responsibility. It was truly exceptional for a young person in his teens. My parents knew that as long as I was with Ralph, no one was ever going to get into any kind of trouble. Although, to be totally honest, there were 1 or 2 mildly hair-raising experiences when we went sailing with Ralph's dad, but perhaps we'll just leave those in the family for now. All over Chappaqua, there were fathers who rejoiced when their daughters went out with Ralph because they knew that Ralph would always get them home comfortably before their curfews, and everyone would always be safe. And yes, this was the dark ages, and we all had curfews back then. Ralph had 2 very special qualities that were particularly unique to him. The first, and maybe the most unusual considering our generation, was that Ralph was the first male friend I had who was always very comfortable talking about his feelings. Even as a teenager, Ralph spent a lot of time thinking deeply about how he felt and how different things affected him. And he was able to describe how he felt in clear and compelling terms. That quality, not just of introspection, but of his willingness and ability to share his feelings, was very unusual, especially in those days. And as many of you undoubtedly know from your own interactions with Ralph, it was a characteristic that he retained throughout his life. It was also often combined with Ralph's really charming and self-deprecating sense of humor. That was simply who he was. He never took himself too seriously, and that was a characteristic he exhibited even in my last conversation with him, just a few days before he passed away. The second remarkable quality I loved about Ralph was his extraordinary kindness. Again, a quality not always well developed in young people in their teens. He was truly one of the kindest and most thoughtful people I've ever known. There wasn't anything Ralph wouldn't do for you, and you didn't have to ask. And he never expected anything in return. He was truly selfless with his time, his energy, and his caring. That was true at an early age, and again, it never changed. Ralph was a participant in my wife Alice's and my wedding 51 years ago. I'm going to hold up a picture of him back then, which I hope you can all see. That's Ralph here on the left, just 4 days before his 23rd birthday. And look, he had hair. When a Jewish person dies, it's traditional to say, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing. Ralph was truly blessed, and he was the embodiment of a blessing for everyone who was fortunate enough to know him. He was the best friend anyone could ever hope to have. I will carry him in my heart forever, as we all will, and his memory will always be a very special blessing for Alice and me, as I'm sure it will be for everyone who had the good fortune to know this truly remarkable person.
Each day I live, I want to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. I broke my heart for every gain, to taste the sweet. I face the pain. I rise and fall, yet through it all, this much remains. I want one moment in time when I'm more than I thought I could be, when all of my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers are all up to me. Give me one moment in time when I'm racing with God
Ralph's granddaughter, Kyla, will share another of Ralph's favorite prayers.
Anybody who knew my grandfather knew what a kind, loving, and warm person he was. He could always put a smile on anyone's face, no matter the circumstance, and he saw the good in anything around him. He saw life as a party, and death was never really the end. Even today, he made sure that we didn't have an actual funeral. No one could be extremely sad or mourning. He needed a party. He wanted to go out in style. A celebration with his favorite show music and friends and family gathering around, smiling and singing. That's what he wanted. And us all getting ready for the celebration, we were running around, freaking out about flower arrangements and program spacing and fonts. And all I could think was, he is so laughing at us right now. Laughing at us while we run around like chickens with no heads. Because that's what he wanted, to laugh. And it wasn't just the celebration, it was the planning he wanted to watch. Pop-Put wouldn't want us to be here today, mourning quietly. He wanted a celebration, and most importantly, he wanted us all to know how much he loved and cared for us. And I think that's a lot about what this poem is about. And it was one of his favorites. When I die. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the streets beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
Ralph was a dear friend. I'd like to share some things that I loved about my friend. I loved how he spoke about his parents, how they inspired him to become a good man. How he talked about what he learned from them about service and the importance of community. I loved the way he sat with his mother when she was in hospice to protect her from indignity. I love how he spoke about his beloved Kathy. Loved her so deeply. The stories he would tell about their courting, their struggles, their commitment to one another was inspiring. I loved how he spoke about his children, how he loved each one for who they were, not for who they wanted, not for whom he wanted them to be. I loved how he loved their spouses like they were his own. I loved how he loved all of his children. I loved how he loved his grandchildren. He really saw them. He took a deep interest in their lives. He cared about what was compelling to them. I loved how much he loved being a grandfather. I loved his laughter. He laughed from a deep place inside, and he laughed authentically with gusto. I loved having breakfast with him. We wore out several of the local breakfast places with our weekly get-togethers for years. I love how much he loved the Torah scroll, that he worked diligently to help us reconnect with the Czech Memorial Trust. And he led the effort to repair our Holocaust Torah and rededicate our Torah scroll in one of the most wonderful celebrations we've ever had in the history of our Beth Chaim community. I loved his generosity of spirit. I loved the way he would express respect without deference. I loved his honesty and his courage not to ignore difficult conversations. I loved the way he worked and the way he played. I loved talking music and theater with him. I loved how much he loved this Beth Chaim community. I loved the way he responded to the news that maybe he had 1.5 years to live. The way he approached the end of his life with such thoughtful, loving attention to details of love. I love the way he made sure to spend time with the people he loved the most. I loved talking with him about life and death, clearly and honestly. I love the way he thought about his legacy and planned this service. I loved Ralph Bleier. Ralph's granddaughter Avery will share some words and play a piece that he loved her to play for him called 1,000 Years.
My grandpa and I shared a great love for music. He was one of the biggest supporters I had when it came to learning how to play piano. When I was 7 years old and playing knick-knack, paddywhack on the piano, he was standing next to me and singing right along with me. As I trained and progressed, nursery rhymes turned into 8-page pieces, and he supported me the whole way. Every day, when I pull out my sheet music, I see the memories we made back on my first keyboard, all the way up to the recitals and performances. My grandpa, or Pops, gave me the sheet music for 1,000 Years, the piece I'm going to play today. But piano wasn't the only thing that the two of us shared a love for. I was cast as the Wicked Witch of the West in my 2nd grade production of The Wizard of Oz. So when the Broadway production of Wicked came back to San Francisco, and we told Pops that we wanted to go, I've never seen someone volunteer to go to a musical quicker. In June of 2019, I wrote my grandparents a letter, telling them how much they mean to me. It started off as a text message, but I quickly got out a pen and paper and wrote it down. I put my letter into the mailbox, and less than a week later, I got one back. In the letter, my grandpa wrote, and I quote, "To be valued and appreciated by grandchildren is a special gift to have shared. Believe it or not, it is rare. To know that he knew how much I valued our bond brings peace to me." Near the end of the letter, he wrote, "I will always be sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear, 'Avery, you've got this.' Every time I sit at the keys, compose music, or think about defying gravity, I know he'll be right here with me."
Before we recite the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, I'd like to ask everyone here to conjure a loving memory of Ralph, to invite Ralph's presence into this sacred place. All who are able, please rise. Ralph would be a little pissed that we didn't put up the words on the screen, but I'm going to recite it slowly, and please feel free to join in with me for Ralph. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah v'yalmad divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mivarach, le'olam u'le'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudisha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Have a seat. Ralph's daughter-in-law, Clara, will share with us a prayer that was very close to Ralph's heart. We remember him. This is a prayer that we continue to honor Ralph's memory by sharing his stories, our experiences that we shared with him, and stay connected to his wondrous neshama, his spirit, his soul. We invite you to participate in this deep prayer of commitment to remembering with the words, we remember him.
At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember him. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of the summer, we remember him. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember him. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember him. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember him.
Oh, my goodness. Look. Just look around. I mean, neighbors, Danville, Trilogy friends, theater friends, Bethheim friends, family, extended family. This is just a little overwhelming for me. What an incredible moment in time this is. Today, now, right here, right now. Ralph just whispered in my ear. He said, Kathy, tell the team, outstanding job. Also, today is a very good day. Okay. I have found the one with whom my soul rejoices. I said these words from the Song of Songs to Ralph on September 24th, 1972. And they still ring true today. Our seasons of love and our life together are imperfectly, breathtakingly beautiful. Look at our family and our friends and our life. You have just seen them on video. The births of each of our children, and then highlighted by their weddings, and then our grandchildren. Together, we have woven what I describe as a colorful tapestry. We had a lot of fun along the way. We are truly blessed. Today we celebrate the life of Ralph Bleier. We loved Ralph Bleier. He was the great love of my life. He had me at a low. And he's still the one. But something else. I also stand here before you today as a grieving widow, mourning the death of her beloved husband 413 days ago. I am healing. And today is a big step in that process. You see, our plan was to grow old together. Kids, very old together. But what we got instead of growing old together was a gift. And that gift was 17 and a half months. We got to experience all the wonder and awe in every single day. What a gift. And Ralph and I are both so grateful for each and every moment that we ever got to share. Just treasure each day. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here today. Here in our sacred sanctuary, and out there, wherever you are, on Facebook and the YouTube world, hello. Thank you for being here. And thank you, most importantly, for your love and support, of us, and for being a part of our story and our journey, and helping us to get to this place today. Please join us on the patio when we're done for some COVID-friendly, I'm emphasizing COVID-friendly snacks. Some of Ralph's favorite sweet treats that he enjoyed going to the movies with. And let's share some stories. I'd love to hear some stories. Ralph reminded me, just shortly before he died, he reminded me to ask you to please, please, please listen very carefully to the words of this last video. There's one more video. He had a list of 30 songs, but he specifically wanted this one to be the last song. And he specifically, just a couple weeks before he died, said, Kathy, don't forget, it's really important. And make sure that they listen to the words. I said, I'll tell them, it's up to them. So do that, because, and he wanted me to say this, they are his words to each of you, sent with much love and gratitude. Thank you.
I'm limited. Just look at me. I'm limited. And just look at you. You can do all I couldn't do, Glinda. So now it's up to you, for both of us. Now it's up to you.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? Because I knew you. I have been changed for good.
It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made from what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind off the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you,
Because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
and just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blame me for.
But then I guess we know there's blame to share, and none of it seems to matter anymore. The comet pulls like a shepherd as it passes the sun, like a stream that feeds like a seed dropped by a halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better. And because I knew you,
Because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
being here this afternoon and fulfilling the mitzvah of Nichum Avelim, providing comfort for the mourners and celebrating an amazing life. So this brings the celebration of life to a close. As Kathy said, everyone's invited to come out. There are individually boxed, safe things to eat. And so even a year later we say, Hamakom yenachem etchem b'shar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of our people. Much love, much love. And now.
Start spreading the news. You're leaving today. Tell him, Frank. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. Your vagabond shoes, they are longing to stray and step around the heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in that city that doesn't sleep and find your king of the hill, top of the heap. Your small town blues, they're melting away. I'm gonna make a brand new start of it in old New York. You always make it there. You make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. In that city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the list, you bet. Number one, king of the hill. You're a little town road. They have all melted away, and I'm gonna make a brand new start of it.